In the previous spoiler, it was mentioned that after successfully assembling 2 full sets of general-grade armor, Luo Feng entered the extraterritorial battlefield alone, officially stepping into the brutal realm of inter-race warfare. This is a trial that every core World Master level member of the 5 major factions must undergo. Due to his fame, Luo Feng had long become a thorn in the side of enemy races. If he were to reveal his true identity, he would easily be targeted and besieged. To minimize the risk, Luo Feng chose to conceal his identity and operate under the codename Madman. It's worth mentioning that once a cultivator reaches the universe level, they can alter their skeletal structure to slightly change their appearance, even changing their skin color. For a world master like Luo Feng, disguising his appearance is effortless. Of course, those familiar with him could still recognize him by his aura. After all, every cultivator's aura is unique, and unlike his Masha clan clone, Luofeng's human body cannot perfectly hide or imitate a different aura. Therefore, this disguise is only effective in environments like the extraterritorial battlefield, where no one has encountered him before. If there's no interaction, there's no recognition. Luo Feng first headed to one of the human race's 8 major logistics bases to enlist, and then followed instructions to reach the new recruit gathering point. Once the group was assembled, they were teleported together to a battlefield base over 1,000,000 kilometers in diameter, which larger than the sun and nearly indestructible, even to universe venerables. According to military regulations, new recruits like Luo Feng must first join an elite squad or formal military unit. This helps them learn battlefield tactics from veterans and increases their chances of survival. After all, inter-race warfare isn't like the qualification battle or the pinnacle genius battle held in the virtual universe, but it's a brutal, real-life slaughter. An enemy's dying counterattack is often the most lethal, and with the battlefield filled with ever-changing traps and dangers, inexperienced overconfidence can easily lead to walking into a pre-laid death trap. Don't forget that the countless races of the universe each have vastly different combat strategies, where many bizarre and unpredictable. Underestimating the enemy can doom even the most gifted geniuses. Because of this, the military strictly forbids new recruits from acting alone before they earn enough military merit. Violators will be punished according to military law. Every first-time warrior in the extraterritorial battlefield is granted authority based on their assessed combat power, and Luo Feng was no exception. These evaluations are handled by the virtual universe, whose accuracy is nearly flawless. Among this batch of World Master level recruits, only 2 were rated as the highest class of World Master Generals, and Luo Feng was one of them. Once authority was assigned, the new recruits were teleported to a battlefield where the mortality rate exceeds 95%, and thus began their real trial by fire. You might wonder, with such a high death rate, isn't the human race worried about population loss? In fact, even the weakest beings allowed on the extraterritorial battlefield are universe-level lifeforms, with lifespans at least 100,000 years. Without disasters, unchecked population growth in a universe with limited resources would eventually collapse the resource chain. This is one reason the extraterritorial battlefield was created. The extraterritorial battlefield not only provides a path for races to fight over territory and resources through strength, but also serves as a critical mechanism to regulate resource distribution and filter out true elites. The seemingly brutal mortality rate is, on a larger scale, merely part of the race's normal death rate. Most importantly, true peak powerhouses can only be forged through life and death trials by facing death at the edge of a blade. This mirrors how the Zerg Queen Irina breeds Zerg kings, where only through countless brutal eliminations can king warriors be produced who are over 10 times stronger than average Zerg soldiers. For this very reason, many cultivators, when faced with a bottleneck in their training, actively throw themselves into battlefields, using war to sharpen their understanding. The pressure of life and death often unlocks hidden potential and breaks through limits. At the same time, they can accumulate wealth through military merit, bringing blessings to their families and improving their own living conditions. This is the opportunity and value hidden behind the brutality of the extraterritorial battlefield. As newly appointed World Master Generals, both Luo Feng and Rock's strength was unquestionable, naturally attracting invitations from numerous elite squads. In the end, they chose to join an 8-man elite squad led by an immortal army lord. Notably, this squad was among the more powerful elite teams. Besides the captain, Taiwo, and immortal army lord, the remaining 7 members were all World Master General level powerhouses. This was exactly what Luo Feng had been looking for. After all, while he appeared to be merely a peak 9th tier World Master, his actual combat strength had already reached the level of a marquee immortal. If he were to join a weaker team, not only would his efficiency drop, but accumulating military merit would also become much slower. It's important to understand that in real combat, most warriors prefer to fight opponents of equal or slightly lesser strength to ensure a manageable and winnable encounter. This means if a team's overall strength is insufficient, the opportunities to earn achievements and merit are limited. But Luo Feng's goal was to complete his cultivation and accumulation plans as quickly as possible. More importantly, Luo Feng's true trump card was his terrifying golden horned beast. On this battlefield forged from blood and slaughter, it was the perfect opportunity to test the results and limits of his training. After submitting their applications and receiving practical battle knowledge on killing techniques, adaptability, and survival strategies, Luo Feng and Rock officially joined the war and embarked on their true path of conquest. It's worth mentioning that the extraterritorial battlefield itself is an immensely vast universe secret realm where its range comparable to a full universe nation, with the entire starfield designated as Warzone. As such, after traveling across the universe and flying for several days within the dark universe, Luofeng's squad finally arrived at the combat zone chosen by their captain, Taiwo. Upon arrival, Taiwo immediately ordered all members to remain on high alert, ready to enter combat at any moment. As new recruits with limited battlefield experience, Luo Feng and Rock were not expected to carry heavy responsibility. They were instead assigned as mobile members which primarily tasked with supporting teammates in distress during combat. What they didn't know, however, was that while Luo Feng's battle count might not rival that of the veterans, he had likewise faced real life and death struggles multiple times, and had even killed powerful enemies far beyond his level on several occasions. Whether in the fierce battles of Blood River Continent or the near-death trials in Demon Mountain, his combat experience was far from immature as it may seem. In fact, within this elite squad, aside from the World Master level apothecary codenamed Poison, Luo Feng could instantly kill any other member, including Captain Taiwo, without paying any price. One could say that Luo Feng was, in fact, the strongest combat force in the entire squad. As for Poison, although he is an apothecary, his combat strength is not to be underestimated. The special potions he concocts can bypass armor defenses and directly corrode the enemy's physical body, powerful enough to even threaten the divine body of an immortal army lord. Some of his toxic agents possess destructive power on par with top-tier spiritual attacks or illusions. Once afflicted, even the strongest willpower may not be enough to resist the effects. However, the strength of an apothecary has its limitations. The quantity of potions is restricted by both resources and time. The more advanced the potion, the rarer and more precious it becomes, making unlimited use impossible. Luo Feng, on the other hand, is completely different. As a spiritual master and genetic warrior. As long as he still has energy within him, he can continue fighting indefinitely without restrictions. Of course, every cultivation path has its own merits, and all can lead to the peak. But for an apothecary to achieve breakthroughs in both combat power and potion refinement is exceptionally difficult. After all, refining medicine demands vast resources. Without the powerful backing of the 5 major human forces, it's nearly impossible to rise independently. Poison's current accomplishments already prove his astonishing talent in the field of alchemy. While traveling across the boundless starfield, Luo Feng and his team remained highly alert. Just as the veteran members were joking and placing private bets on whether Luo Feng or Rock would earn more military merit, an unexpected crisis suddenly struck. The spaceship came under a violent surprise attack without any warning. By the time the ship's AI sounded the alarm, the assault had already begun. The entire E9 grade spaceship was instantly blasted apart, with only the lounge, made from F9 grade metal, withstanding the attack. This was the truest portrayal of the extraterritorial battlefield. Danger could arrive at any moment, without the slightest sign. On the battlefield, whether one can seize the initiative entirely depends on the quality of their detection equipment. High-level detectors can even detect hidden or shielded enemy probes, giving them the chance to launch a surprise attack while the enemy remains unaware. This is precisely why Taiwo was willing to pay a premium to have the ship's lounge built from F9 grade metal. You might wonder, why not just build the entire ship using F9 grade materials, like Luofeng's Junimo spaceship? Wouldn't that be more secure? In theory, yes. But F9 grade spaceships are extremely expensive, where even many immortal-level powerhouses may not be able to afford one. Moreover, without top-tier detection systems, enemies can easily monitor all the movements of such a ship and even determine the power level of its owner. If someone of limited strength is seen piloting an F9 grade spaceship, it's basically advertising that they possess immense wealth, which would inevitably draw covetous attention, or even targeted ambushes. After all, following a normal growth trajectory, a world master like Luo Feng, had he not inherited Huyan Bo's legacy or been a key nurtured talent of the Virtual Universe Company, would already be considered very wealthy to own just an E9 grade spaceship. So if a world master, or even an immortal army lord, is seen flying an F9 grade spaceship, it's no different from shouting, "I'm a walking treasure vault." In that case, not attracting powerful hunters would actually be unusual. By comparison, lower grade ships are cheaper, and their loss isn't as painful. Meanwhile, critical components like a reinforced lounge can be carried separately and installed into another spaceship as needed, which improving safety while also keeping costs in check. This time, Luo Feng and his group were ambushed by an immortal-level powerhouse from the automaton race. Similar to the Zerg Queens, the automatons also rely primarily on controlling puppet armies as their main mode of combat. This means that each automaton warrior is effectively equivalent to a fully equipped army. Especially those among the automatons with great wealth, their mechanical puppets are so numerous they could form an entire universe-level kingdom. Thus, in battles of equal level, whether against Zerg Queens or automaton powerhouses, they are almost unbeatable. In particular, wealthy automatons, even if they are only at the World Master level, can possess terrifying strength capable of slaying immortal beings. Moreover, the automatons represent the pinnacle of technology. They often hide in extremely distant and safe zones, remotely controlling thousands upon thousands of mechanical puppets to launch attacks. They are capable of intense long-range bombardment and can also command puppets in close combat, executing coordinated strikes from all directions, forcing their enemies into a pre-calculated rhythm of battle, and then defeating them one by one. This is precisely why automatons are so hard to defeat. Not only is it difficult for enemies to locate their true bodies, but even initiating a counterattack is nearly impossible, leaving their opponents on the defensive. Once the automaton takes full control of the battlefield's rhythm, their enemy won't even have a chance to retaliate and will inevitably be whittled down to extinction. Just imagine an enemy that can't be located or killed, yet can bring death at any time. How could one possibly win against such a foe? An opponent like this is enough to drive anyone to despair. Of course, executing such precise battle strategies requires more than just great intelligence. It demands top-level technological weapons and extremely durable puppet armies. In other words, no matter the race, only geniuses nurtured by a race's core forces have the potential to achieve the feat of defeating stronger foes across realms. In fact, only true core members are granted enough resources to build up such invincible power. After the spaceship was destroyed, Luo Feng and the others immediately rushed out of the lounge, maintaining high alert and scanning the surroundings, yet they found no trace of the enemy. Just as Taiwo was about to issue the order to retreat, a massive electric net suddenly rose and trapped them in a tight encirclement. Immediately after, swarms of mechanical puppets surged from all directions. Faced with such a well-executed ambush, Taiwo had no choice but to order an immediate breakout. However, the automaton race is fundamentally an intelligent lifeform, superior to humans in both tactical planning and coordinated combat. Once trapped in the combat rhythm set by their calculations, it was almost like stepping into a death trap. Attempts to break through were repeatedly blocked. The automatons had long since laid a Skynet trap, leaving Luofeng's team no choice but to fight back. In order to disrupt the enemy's plans, the team had to destroy the incoming puppets as quickly as possible. Just as they began to feel a slight sense of optimism from their destruction efficiency, they failed to notice they had already stepped deeper into the enemy's trap. The initial wave of numerous E-grade mechanical puppets was merely bait, meant to lull them into carelessness and drain their will to escape. As the team became entangled in bitter combat, the enemy silently replaced them with fewer but far deadlier F-grade puppets. These F-grade units had far stronger defenses and were nearly impossible to destroy through brute force. Most despairing of all was that the team's two illusionists were practically useless in this battle. Remember, the automatons have no souls, making them naturally immune to soul attacks and illusion-based techniques. As everyone fought desperately and their only immortal-level teammate was being held down and even suppressed by the enemy, Poison quietly retrieved a vial of high-level potion, preparing to counterattack. Yet, unlike the others who were anxiously defending themselves, Luo Feng remained calm throughout, even splitting part of his consciousness to observe how the veterans handled the real-life combat situation. After all, if he wished, he could end the battle instantly. In fact, just the enormous body of the immortal star-eating grass alone would be enough to trap or even destroy all the surrounding mechanical puppets. And if he were to unleash the ninth form of the Yenshin armament using the power of his inner world, the Yenshin golden sword could slice through the void itself, unstoppable and unmatched. However, Luo Feng had not yet been granted permission to act independently, and he had no intention of revealing his trump cards prematurely. At this moment, he preferred to treat the battle as both a trial and an opportunity to observe. Seeing Luofeng's terrifying combat strength, Poison immediately relaxed and put away his potions without hesitation. After all, potions differ from physical techniques, they are consumables, especially the high-level ones whose raw materials are extremely precious. Reforging them not only takes time but also costs a fortune. Poison would never use them lightly unless it was a life-or-death situation. Throughout the entire battle, Luo Feng appeared the most at ease. He even diverted part of his focus to shelter several teammates whose defenses were about to collapse inside his world ring, while assisting Captain Taiwo in breaking through the encirclement. Once Luo Feng joined the fight, the tide instantly turned. Seeing that their encirclement failed, the automaton powerhouse finally gave up the assault and began urgently recalling all mechanical puppets. Each mechanical puppet represents the wealth of an automaton warrior, and that wealth is a reflection of their strength. If the massive losses cannot be compensated through military merits or spoils, it would be a losing proposition. Moreover, Luofeng's squad lacked a marquee immortal level member, and their military merits and valuables were far less than the huge amount of mechanical troops they were up against. It was clearly unwise to risk their entire resources for such a meager gain. When the enemy retreated, Captain Taiwo did not order a pursuit. He knew well that as powerful automatons, carrying fire god origin crystals was standard equipment for them. Recklessly chasing after them might provoke an even more brutal counterattack, an outcome too terrible to imagine. In fact, if it were not for the earlier intense battle between the automaton powerhouse and a marquee immortal, which caused significant losses and prevented the use of higher-level tactics during this siege, Luofeng's team would likely have suffered heavy casualties by now. After this battle, the veterans in the squad increasingly respected Luo Feng, and his status within the team rose accordingly. As for the other rookie, Rock, he was already among the top of the younger generation of world masters and could be ranked among the core world masters of the 5 major powers. Unfortunately, beside the dazzling star that is Luo Feng, even the brightest stars inevitably pale. Though they narrowly escaped danger, Taiwo remained vigilant and immediately organized the entire squad to review the battle. On this perilous extraterritorial battlefield, those who do not reflect on themselves, identify shortcomings, and strengthen their capabilities amidst crises will only be the first to perish in the next battle. After the debrief, the group reorganized and once again embarked on their blood-forged, fire-tempered journey of war. Well, that's all for this video. Thanks for watching this video. Wish you a wonderful day.